Hello and welcome to the Maple Grove City Report. I'm Dave Kaiser from Northwest Community Television. Are you ready for an update on Maple Grove or ready to give it to you? We're going to have a half hour of what's new in Maple Grove, the last council meeting information, and also some information about roads around town. All next on the Maple Grove City Report. And thank you again for joining us on the Maple Grove City Report. And as you see, no, not Al Madsen today. Ken Asheville joining us to talk a little bit about what's happening in the city and the council, but also his areas of expertise, engineering, and also public works in the city. Welcome again, Ken.
Thank you, Dave. It's
Thanks
always
for
a pleasure being here.
Glad to have you here. We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's get right to it. The first is some magazine news that came out about the city of Maple Grove in a very favorable way. Tell us about CNN Money Magazine.
Yes, annually they do a listing, at least from their perspective, of the best cities to live in within the United States. And we're very pleased to be to the announcement that Maple Grove is in the top 25 cities within the country to live. And
tell us a little bit more of how they figure this out. You have some of the criteria here that they look at.
Well, they look at a lot of different factors. Of course, they would look at the governance of the city and its financial state. And of course, they've always recognized Maple Grove for its strong governance. And that is, of course, attributable to our city council and the financial situation that they place the city in. We also have a AAA bond rating, which is also extraordinarily well for a city at the size of Maple Grove. So we're all proud of that. But of course, they take into account a lot of other factors.
Sure.
Quality of life type factors, what the schools are, price of housing, the availability of jobs and job growth, clearly the park system, the level of crime in the city and those types of things. And of course, we have the best residents and citizens in the city.
There you go, there you go. So that's easy to count. How about others in Minnesota? Anyone else make the list in Minnesota?
Actually, there were 5
within
Minnesota. I don't have the list of all of those cities, but Maple Grove is one of those 5. And it's pretty inordinate that Minnesota would have 5 cities in the top 25 within the country.
That's right.
That's maybe attributable to the state.
So where does this go from here? Obviously, this is something that Maple Grove's proud of and telling you right now, but how about other campaigns, publicity? You're going to get the word out about this, I take it?
Oh, I imagine we'll be getting the word out. The formal announcement is still coming. So.
All right.
A peek preview.
That's right. So now you know what's going on with that. Let's cover some other things happening in town. Election season is upon us here. Tell us what happened with primaries and what people can look forward to in general.
Yes, Dave. We're in the election season, and of course, there's 2 open seats within the city of Maple Grove for the city council spot, and the 2 incumbents are running, as well as a few other candidates that have signed up for that position. So we're a month and a half off, and the primary recently occurred, and of course that's always a good test to see how the voting machines are working and how the different precincts and polling places are working.
Because you had some changes this year. You had a few new locations, as I understand, and a few districts were moved around. So that went well, and people ended up at the right place, I take it?
Well, I hope they did.
Right. Maybe a little redirection on occasion.
Of course, within the primary, it's a fairly low voter turnout.
Right.
So we only had like 5% of the registered voters that came out. We didn't really have any hot contested primaries.
Right.
So,
No primaries for the council in the city of Maple Grove. That's always
Correct.
been the case, but
Correct.
that number, I believe it's 7, are running for council. It's a
Correct.
pretty regular number that you
Yes.
have.
Pretty
How about,
typical.
How about absentee voting? If people are seeing that they're going to be out of town on November 6th, what can they do now?
They should really come to City Hall, and they can pick up the absentee ballots paperwork. And we have that area staffed all the time now during
Okay.
the day, expecting absentee voters. That's a pretty typical, it's a mobile society, busy society. A lot of people moving, working on their jobs, that type of thing. So that's a big part of the elections is the absentee ballots.
All right, then again, the great place to go for all the information is the city's website, so you can find out more there about the election and the candidates themselves. Let's talk a little bit about houses in Maple Grove. You have the latest numbers?
The latest number, we've had 107 single-family homes so far this year, and we're a little bit over halfway through. So it's fairly close to mirroring what we had last year. We were around 200 last year.
And that was really the expectation, was about the same as last year going into this year?
Yes. The housing market, if you listen to all the news around it, it's starting to rebound. And we have seen that as well in values, both from the standpoint of sales and just, particularly in the sales area. We haven't
Right.
really compared that to the assessed values yet. That'll be coming next. But our inventory of available lots is depleting.
Right.
We're down to somewhat more than a year, but less than 2 years worth of inventory.
Okay.
Years back, we used to carry 5 and sometimes more, 5 years of inventory.
Right.
So it's getting down there. It's the tolerance for risk on the part of developers, and I suppose over time, if the housing market trends really bounce back, the risk goes down, and hence the tolerance is a little better too.
Okay, we'll keep you up to date on that number. A lot of people in the city of Maple Grove are busy the first week of August with the National Night Out, and you've got some numbers there, and it was a banner year once again.
Yes. It started out with an event at the community center right next to the Lions shelter. And a lot of people and politicians and police and fire come out for that event. A lot of events for children, that type of thing. And that was really jam-packed over there for a couple hours. And then in the evening, there was 130 block parties, of which our police and fire and council members and mayor, they like to try to get around to as many of those as they possibly can. And quite frankly, my understanding is that they hit all 130 of them. So
Oh, fantastic. They were busy that night.
that's a
Public
busy
Works and Engineering go out to talk to people that night?
We don't really get into crime.
Okay, I understand that. But I bet maybe some projects came up as a point of discussion here or there, so.
Oh yeah.
You answer those afterwards. A couple other things
A
then
couple
that are
other
happening
things
in
going
town?
on. Of course, we like to talk about the farmers market. The Maple Grove Farmers Market is really becoming renowned to be one of the better farmers markets around. And we take a count on how many people are there. And we normally get about 2,500 shoppers at the farmers market on any
incredible
particular
number.
day. And actually one day we counted the number of children, and there were 700 children accompanying their parents to this event. And there's a lot of things to do there, mostly shopping.
That's right.
And as much as I hate the thought of it, we're already planning for the indoor market, which means winter isn't too far away. And that's the first and third Thursday of the months of November and December.
Okay.
And at that time, it won't be 80-some degrees. I would
That's true.
imagine.
Maybe a little different and a little different products there, and maybe some
Yes.
items that people will be thinking about for the
Correct.
holidays as well.
Correct.
So you can keep an eye on that. Obviously, the city's website has a lot of information on that, and that's Thursday afternoons, 4 to 7. Is that the correct time?
I believe
if
that
I'm
is the
remembering
time.
Right here?
I believe that is the
Okay.
time.
So again, you can go to the site and find out more about that.
And of course, tomorrow starts the State Fair.
That's right.
And we have a State Fair shuttle bus that runs from Maple Grove over to the fairgrounds. And that's at the transit center right there by the shops. But our transit system runs weekends and Labor Day. So
Okay.
it's 5 days.
Okay.
And it really operates pretty well. I took it last year and it just worked great.
Yeah,
That-
makes the parking idea go away.
Yes.
But you say again, that's just on the weekends and on Labor Day as well. So
Correct.
during the week,
During the
not
week.
an option. Okay.
There's other park and ride lots that certainly is on websites. It was in last Sunday's paper I saw.
Okay.
But it does work well, that driving around looking for a parking spot at the fairgrounds. If you can avoid that, that's always.
That's right. Let
always
someone else do the driving is what they say. So a
Correct.
great opportunity to get down to the
Correct.
State Fair. We've got some business development news as well. We've talked a little bit on past programs about Upshur Smith. We have a few more details now on their project.
Yes, Upshur Smith has been there going on about 10 years now, I guess, speaking from
Already
memory.
that long.
And when they went in the very first time, they had this vision of how big they would ultimately need to be, and they planned the site accordingly. If you've noticed the building, say from the freeway, the front of the building facing to the south is very elaborate, very nice looking architecturally. The side towards the freeway was fairly bland. Well, they always planned it. That's the side that they were going to expand on.
Okay.
So they're actually expanding in two different directions, towards the freeway, and they have a smaller addition out towards the north and northeast.
Okay.
But that's about 120,000 square feet, which is a significant expansion, and we're looking forward to that.
Time frame on that is to still start this year in 2012 or next
They're
year?
hoping to get started this year yet.
Okay, so you'll see that going on as you go around the freeway. Let's talk a little bit about your area, the Public Works area. We've got a little change going on in the building, and you're going to have a new neighbor in the building. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
When we started working on the design of that building, the Historical Society, which has never had any space and they have the product, not products, but the
Artifacts, if you will.
Artifacts
right?
jumped in my mind.
All
but
the
I was thinking
historical books.
well, I was kind of search for antiques.
There you go.
And they're constantly working on the antiques, and then of course they need to store it, and they really never had a place before. It's some of the items are stored in the government center, stuck in corners here and
Right.
corners there. Well, when we were designing the Public Works expansion, we took into account to provide some space for the Historical Society. So they are looking forward to moving in, and they are hoping to hold their first meeting of September 20th.
Will that space allow it to be open to the public at all for people to come in and look at items, or is it more of a meeting and office space?
It's a meeting and office. They haven't formalized all their plans yet,
Okay.
how they want to go about that. They really display much of their stuff at the government center. So it's kind of like displaying some stuff and then shuttling it back for storage and back and forth.
Okay.
Because as people come to the government center on and off, then the displays change. Right
Sure.
now they've got some World War II displays, and it's really great. to
Yeah,
go
it's a
around.
treat to stop by the government center and just walk up and down the
Yes.
main hallway and see what's there.
Almost
So
like a museum.
that's right. That's good they have that spot coming in the future. And tell us a little bit more about that building. You're in now, and you've got an open house to the public coming up soon.
We're pretty much in. We're still moving in. As I mentioned in the past, we've got equipment and products and tools stored throughout the city at different places. And we still need to bring those items back to one centralized area
Okay.
and get them stored properly. As we've talked within our meetings with public works staff, we can't just drop everything and move.
Sure.
We got a few other obligations
That's
to
right.
our residents. So first thing, do our normal job, and then rain days or whatever we can fill in with trying to move. And
Okay.
takes a little longer that way.
Sure. I can imagine you're probably finding things that have been hidden away for years, and you're thinking, what is that, or when
Oh,
did
yeah.
we use that? So maybe
Yep.
throwing out a few things, or maybe refinding and retooling a few things.
Exactly. If
Okay.
you've ever moved, you've probably threw away a few
Yes.
things when you've moved from house to house.
Yep.
Kind of the same thing.
Good to have it all in one place. So that's a little update of what's been happening around town. We'll get to a few transportation items in just a second while we have Ken here. But let's talk about the council meeting that just recently occurred. A rather light meeting, about a half hour, but what were a few of the highlights?
It was about a half-hour meeting on August 20th, and just a few administrative items. They appointed fire officers at each of the 5 fire stations, and they, at a recent meeting, they appointed some of the captains. The way they've done it in the past is it was more of an annual or semi-annual appointment of some of these spots, and really it just became cumbersome, so they just made appointments until which time there's openings created by either retirees or whatever the case may
Okay.
be. So that helps out a lot. Then they had Maple Grove photo contest presentations, which was really pretty neat. There's, I believe, 4 different categories, and then first, second, and third place in each of the categories, and some of the photos are really neat. And,
So I would guess that'll be something that might be on the city's website or in future publications. So if you want to see what your neighbors are taking pictures of, you can do that.
Yes, yes. And then the a major item of discussion that night was the addition of another Goodwill store, and the location of such is adjacent to, or I should say, bracketed between the old Man Theater and Champs Restaurant.
Okay.
When council recently approved that whirly ball operation within the old theater,
Right.
their parking demands and that type of thing were quite a bit different than what a theater would be.
Sure.
So there was room to create an additional lot. And so this proposal is to put another Goodwill store, the second within the city. And my understanding is they plan to operate both stores yet.
Okay.
So it isn't just one moving to another.
Sure.
And council had some concerns about the looks of the building, because it is in somewhat of a prominent location. So they approved it, but conditionally, though, that the developer needs to go back and look at a couple treatments on the building to try to spruce the looks of the building up.
Okay. So it will actually be in what is known now as the parking lot of the theater.
Correct.
In part of that area?
Correct.
And will it be shared parking then with the new business that will go in, or will they build additional parking?
They
for
will
that?
have enough parking.
Okay.
Essentially, the size of that space, or that the old lot was such that they just put a lot line between the 2 buildings. And so that left enough room for that particular building. And I think they are planning to get started next month already on that.
Size of the store similar to the size of the existing store further up north in the
Yes.
city? Okay.
Yes. They fashioned the architectural features after the one that's in Champlin.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that.
Okay.
And that was about it. I gave the council some updates on some of the transportation projects.
All
and
right.
They adjourned at 8 o'clock.
All right. Well, let's get those updates for us now. For the viewers, let's bounce around town a little bit. Tell us some of the projects that you have going on and how they're progressing throughout the summer. I would guess the season has been pretty good for construction for you. Is that true?
It has been, yes. It was pretty wet this spring. And for those projects that had a 2-year construction season, we ran into that same thing last spring. In fact, we had flooding situations last spring. So one of our largest projects that we have going on right now is the Bass Lake Road project. And
Right.
that project actually ran under 2 phases. We undertook the first phase way out at the west side of the city. Let's see, 3 years ago we finished that up.
Okay.
And that phase actually was tied to the stimulus monies, or the ARA monies, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. So we were very fortunate to get about $3 million to kickstart that project. But it was all about jobs. So we had to get that project going almost immediately, the old term shovel-ready projects.
Right.
And we were very fortunate to run that project through the process to make that part of it shovel-ready. Phase 2, we had a little pause then between the two, because
Right.
phase 2 we had some environmental issues to address.
Okay.
Phase 2 got started last spring, late last spring, because of the weather conditions. We had some lightweight fill and that type of thing that had to come up by barge. And if you remember, the Mississippi River was closed for barge traffic. So that project got a fairly late start. However, our projected completion was, or is, the end of November of this year, which is what was in the contracts.
Okay.
But we're expecting to have that project substantially complete by the middle of September. So we're about 2 months ahead of schedule on that project, even though we got a late start.
Couple questions about those phases, then we can move on to the next. First, on the first phase that was done out by 101, how has that intersection worked out for everyone? The times I've driven through that area, it seems to be much simpler now. Is that the response you're getting, and is it moving the traffic the way you intended?
Absolutely. The old roadway system, and I hesitate to call it intersection because there's actually 2.
Right, right.
And it was very confusing. So the best part that we did was to take 2 intersections and reduce it down to 1. Now, we designed that for the future growth of the area.
Right.
And you may recall at that time that there was a very aggressive development plan
Right.
for that corner.
Some retail, shopping.
Yes. And of course, that's about the time when the economy went south. And my understanding is that many of those projects are still in the works. So we didn't build the roads for nothing.
Good.
But it also serves just regional traffic that just wants to pass through the area.
Right.
So it has operated very well.
Okay.
Very well.
Let's
And
talk
that was one
go
of
ahead.
the first intersections that we introduced the flashing yellow arrow. And it worked so well out there, we've been introducing it more and more throughout the city, and we'll be doing so as time goes on.
All right, we'll watch for that coming. Talk about the next phase now. You mentioned the phase 2 part of the project. What are the boundaries for that? Basically, what streets are we talking about in between for people that might not know?
Between Vicksburg Lane and then extending westerly past Lawndale. And of course, we took an old dilapidated 2-lane rural type road that's been there for 100 years.
Right.
And changed into an urban environment type road with turn lanes, trails on both sides, a linear trailway system underneath the new bridges. It involves 2 new bridges.
Right.
And and as I say, the road's been there for hundreds of years. And when the road was built, Mother Nature had a tendency to support that road over many years. Well, now, when we build the road, we have had a few choices, and one was not to let Mother Nature take her time.
Okay.
We had to.
Sure.
We had to do some innovative engineering with the soils corrections.
Right.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
So,
And tell us a little bit about that. And you mentioned the bridges too, and I know that was quite a project.
yes, we had to go through a couple analysis to determine what is the most cost-effective way of crossing that river, because we really wanted to raise that road up. And the soils in that area do not support a roadway. They're about 75 feet deep of unstable soils. So
Okay.
we had a choice of either bridging over all those poor soils with about a 400-foot long bridge, which would have increased the project by about $3 to $4 million.
Sure.
But not only that, but then you have to maintain all that bridge over time. So
Okay.
we elected to go with a short bridge, 70 feet long, and support the embankments approaching the bridge with lightweight material, consisting of some material from Louisiana, but we also, the majority of the embankments are supported by this extruded polystyrene, which is nothing more than styrofoam.
Right, interesting, all right.
So-
But it seems to be working, and
is.
as far as that particular phase, how close are we? What's going to be finished up this year? Will pretty much everything be done?
Everything will be finished up we're open by the 1st of October.
Okay. And then does that mean Bass Lake Road is finished and you put the stamp of approval,
We'll
or
put
a
the
few more things to go?
No, we'll put the stamp of approval on it.
Very good.
We'll
I
be
know
done.
a lot of people happy about
Yes.
that roadway.
Yes.
Let's move up north a little bit in town. Weaver Lake Road has seen some excitement on a couple ends of it.
Correct.
You pick where we start.
Well, our favorite part that we've been being very sensitive to how we get the work done would be the part west of the interstate. The pavement has deteriorated over the last 20 years, which is not unexpected.
Right.
That's how we design roads, is for a 20-year life.
Especially with all the traffic in that area.
And that road has got a ton of traffic. I remember when we widened it out back in 1993. It was quite a challenge dealing with the traffic at that time. If you can imagine, fast forward 20 years to today,
Right.
that road, right about at the interchange ramps, there's about 36,000 cars a day that go through there. Probably one of the most heavily traveled roads in the metro area other than a freeway system.
Right.
And it's a local city street. So we elected to do the pavement replacement utilizing, for the most part, weekends around the clock, because the traffic is more spread out during the day as opposed to the rush hour in the
Sure.
morning
Okay.
and in the evening. We did do some lane closures to do some concrete work along the edges, fix up the one thing we needed to do was fix up the handicap ramps and the trailway systems, that type of thing.
Okay.
First weekend went well. This past weekend, that I was through there a number of times. Traffic seemed to be moving fine. A few times it got clogged up, but we kind of expected that.
Right.
And the next, we will finish the project 3 weekends hence. This coming weekend, there's a fairly large event on the west side of town there, the triathlon, which involves staging at Boston Scientific. So
Okay.
and then the following weekend is Labor Day.
Sure.
So we're going to bump out to the,
So middle of September,
Yes.
roughly.
yes.
Okay. Final minute or so we have here. Let's talk about the other end, and that would be the county project that is going on.
That is, well, it's a cooperative project between the county and the city on Weaver Lake Road from Main Street east all the way to 81, Jefferson being the border. Hennepin County is managing that project for us. They're the lead. And that project is pretty much on schedule. That project's supposed to be done sometime in November.
Okay. And definitely another needed project, because that
Yes.
area had been receiving a lot of traffic recently as well, with all of the new buildings and things happening. A lot of people using that as the cut across, basically.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so that is moving along. Very good, and we'll catch you again in the future. Wish we could talk more about a few other projects, but we're out of time today. Ken, thank you very much for
You're
the
welcome.
information. Let's leave you the website in case you're interested in some of the information we talked about earlier in the program, election information, farmers market. There is the website address at the middle of the screen. The next council meeting, by the way, is on a Tuesday because of the holiday. It'll be September 4th at 7:30 at the Government Center. 494-6000 is the phone number to the Government Center with questions. And if you have questions you'd like us to address on the program, 533-1710 is our viewer response line. For Ken Ashfield, I'm Dave Kaiser. Thanks for joining us on the Maple Grove City Report.